talking about the key functions of the NACCHO sector, the role it has plays in improving the health and well-being of our health, but you also talked about what else needs to be done and what other resources that our sector needs. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more on that?
I mean, it's no surprise to any of us. In order for us to close the health gap, we really need to be really thinking about the funding. We can be thinking about comorbidities and chronic disease and some of the social determinants, but all of that, in order to challenge that and to fix that, we need real funding.
Yes.
And so we've done this huge piece of work through equity economics that has given us this sort of formed evidence base that what we need is 4.4 billion per year. You break that down, for each of our mobs, that's 5,000 per year. Now, if we don't receive that allocation, we will not be able to close the health gap. We'll just be playing around at the edges and hoping for the best, and it just won't happen.
What would you like governments or other funders to know about what they can expect you to deliver on that and how they expect you to deliver on that?
Some of that's a twofold response because we've inherited this sort of colonised settler approach where the expectation around what we have to send back to government is at such a high level. We are scrutinised that is at a level that is unacceptable compared to other NGOs. And so there is that power imbalance that needs to be addressed. The second part to that is the money that goes into the non-Indigenous sector, in comparison to ours, there is no equity at play. And so if I peel it back at a sort of basic level, the level of structural racism that we have to operate in is untenable.
Absolutely.
And can I add to that it's the structural racism then feeds into us the sense of covering, the sense of we're an imposter, the sense of low worth and value because we're having to appease to the master. And so it has so many ongoing impacts to the community. One of the impacts is communities were so willing to accept peanut money because we feel so grateful that we get this rubbish money. And so it has so many facets that really contribute to harm.
You also talked this morning about the mainstream sector needing to lift its game. And I mentioned to you briefly before that there was a report in The Guardian this morning about how badly the child maternal health sector is doing, mainstream hospital sector is doing for our role when it comes to earning antenatal care and postnatal care. What do they need to do? Like, what's your key pitch?
Look, the key pitch, they need to get out of our way, would be the first step. They need to stop looking at cultural safety as something that inspires them. They need to own the fact that they cannot deliver a service that is culturally safe without us being the majority of the workforce. And so simple things like cultural identity and connection means we feel safe. If you or I are in a room where everybody else is the majority, the way that we enter is elevated because we're protecting ourselves. And so for me, the mainstream accept and cannot deliver. Be willing to transfer funds and skills to build our sector. And then we can partner. And the balance of power is sitting where our community deserves and wants to be positioned.
But how do we actually get mainstream services to understand, so hospitals, private GP clinics, government clinics, understand that the institutional racism within their organisations is so extensive that they need to completely change the way they do business? Like, how do we talk about that? How do we get them to listen?
You know, we give all of these big questions a lot of our thinking and time. I don't look to them to acknowledge their harm because I know it to be true. What I would be pushing government is the way that the funds are allocated through these national agreements. As a part of these national intergovernmental agreements, as a part of receiving funds, you must achieve these KPIs. If not, your money reduces. I just cannot see any other way but through those intergovernmental funding arrangements.
Speaking of governments, you also mentioned this morning that the Department of Health is doing a good job. I'm sure there's probably more improvement, but the other departments aren't doing what they need to do. One of the key priorities is transforming government. What do we need to do there to get them to actually do that? And what does that look like?
Look, we've had the Productivity Commission report come down and very clear recommendations. In the next couple of weeks we'll have the Indigenous-led review. That'll come down. Both reports are very similar.
That's encouraging.
Very encouraging. So when we think of Priority Reform 3 around transforming government, a key piece of that is the independent mechanism. A place where we can hold government to account. Now we know that each jurisdiction, including the Commonwealth, have laboured and been very slow in setting up their mechanism. And so for us on the Coalition of Peace side, we will continue to push and demand that. Now if that doesn't come, then we will have to think very differently about what approach, because we know that government, Department of Health is the only one that I know that's leaning in.
Is there anything else you want to talk about? I mean, you gave such a great presentation this morning.
Just the enormity of who we are and the way that we show up each and every day. Our ability to forgive in the face of so much.